It was.
We're only today in Chulin Daf Chavov, the last daf of the first parak on the second Chulin. We're starting the Mishnah on Daf Chafei base. The Mishnah says, remember the whole discussion of these Gemaras, these Mishnayos, is we're comparing two things that are seemingly alike, but they are opposite halacha regarding one thing. So Mishnah says, Hatemet. What is Hatemet? Hatemet means when you take the sediments, Chavei with base at the bottom of the Mishnah, and we learned today Chavov. So the Hatemet is you take the sediments of the wine and you add to them water until it doesn't have choimitz, which means until it does not have the taste of the fruits. So in other words, it doesn't boil, doesn't really get the wine taste. The ferment, that's the word. So then you're not allowed to use kesef meiser to use it, because kesef meiser, with the money of meiser sheni, you can buy only fruits. You cannot buy water. So as long as it's not fermenting, you look at this as water. Once it's fermenting, it becomes wine. And then it causes psul b'mikvah. Why? Because it's water. Maim shuvim, if you put maim shuvim in a mikvah which is not full, it's poisel. Mishiich once it did ferment, nika v'kesef meiser, you could buy with meiser sheni, ve'ei no poisel sabik. Because Rashi points out it's not exactly the previous Mishnayos, because the previous Mishnayos is two opposite things, and this is the same thing in two different stages. Ha'achim ha'shutfim, when you have two brothers or partners, k'shechayovim bekalboim p'turim m'meiser be'imo, or k'shechayovim meiser be'imo p'turim m'nakalbo. So here is again two opposites. We have a din that is negate to partnership. Partners do not chayav in ma'aser be'im. Ma'aser be'im is only for individuals, not partners. Partners don't have to do. Partners. There's another thing. When you give a machzeh shekel, so you have to. If two people are giving together machzeh shekel, they have to have a kalboin. A kalboin means you have to have like some extra, which is meant for the exchange rate. So each one who gives one shekel has to give two. You have to give double kalboin when you have 1 shekel for both. If it's given by somebody else, so then for on behalf of two, you don't give the kalboin. So like this: if you have partners, they're giving machzeh shekel, you have to have the kalboin. Now, if it's not a partnership, how can it be that you have two people that are not a partnership? So they call tfus habayis. Tfus habayis means the estate. Father died, and the kids did not divide the estate. So before you divide the estate, the ownership of this household is the father. The father's dead. What it means is the father's house. The father's house is holding on to the estate. So then it's not a partnership. It belongs to one entity. So if you have a din of ma'aser be'imo, so in that case you'll be chayav ma'aser be'imo, because ma'aser be'imo you don't have a partnership. But then you also be part of a kalb, because kalb is only when two people get together to give ma'aser shekel, not someone giving on behalf of somebody else. Here's considered to be that the tfus habayis is giving on behalf of somebody else. So again, if it's before they split the property, so they're considered to be all one, meaning all under the auspices of the father, so there is no kalboin, but there is ma'aser be'imo. And if they split the nechasim and then they decide to partner together, create a new LLC, so then there will be kalboin, but there won't be ma'aser be'imo because the partnership doesn't have ma'aser be'imo. Something more mani mastisi lo yabudav lo yabonim. Going now to the temet, which is the sediments that you put in water. Something more mishluchu is now yabudav yabonim. The Daniel. Hametamed v'nosan mayim b'midos. Someone's doing temed, putting water in the sediments. Umotzo kedei midosoi. And he goes and he measures it and he sees exactly the same amount of water that I put in is still there. There's no more liquid. It's the same amount of liquid. Potter. You're potter for what? You're potter for a ma'aser. Right? Because it's water. Rabbi Yehuda Mechayev, he holds it is fruit, even though it did not change its amount. Says more now. Man, I've got the Yechezkel. According to the Rabbanan Mashra, it doesn't matter if it gets the taste, it doesn't have a taste. As long as it's the same amount, same quantity, it's considered to be water only. Our Mishnah says that once it ferments, it loses it becomes a fruit. According to Rabbi Yehuda, even without Yechezkel, Once you have water over here, it's not considered to be water. It's a machlokes beichmitz, meaning the machlokes between Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda is when it did absorb the taste. If it did not absorb the taste, everybody agrees it's water. But if it absorbed the taste, so there you have a machlokes. Gavaldik, our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Yehuda, and that's what we say sheichmit, because only then Rabbi Yehuda held that it does have a state of fruit. He also says that's the machlokes. Says the Gemara now, if you took kesef, you took temet with the kesef meiser, it did not have the taste of the wine, but then the boss of yichmitz eventually did have a taste. Korno meiser, it does get meiser works. Why? My time is glowing milsa mafera de Peru. We find them mafera. In other words, what are we talking about? According to Rabbi Yehuda, that you say that once it absorbs the taste, so then it becomes fruit. So, but now when you bought it, there was no absorption of taste. The absorption of taste was only later. You say yes. Once I absorb the taste, retroactively, you can't find out that this was always fruit. Rashi explains because already the sediment started going into the water, but it didn't finish. Hello, but our Mishnah doesn't say it. Mishnah says that if it does have the taste, so then it has a different fruit. And if it doesn't have a taste, it does not have the different fruit. So the boy answer, I understand, but you're saying that if it becomes chaymitz later, if it ferments later, so retroactively you say that from the beginning that's what it was. So maybe that will be the case by us. And now you're saying so clearly that it's either poisonous to mikvah or hikmah. Like, how do you say that? He does it. He leaves a little bit out, and he waits for it to see if this becomes, if it ferments. And he realizes it never did. See, this is that argues that given Luki by. Now here we have two Gersoris in the following brayso, and if you remember, this sounds very familiar because we learned it in the Maseches Makis. So, but a Rashi brings over here there's two Gersoris over here. The same way that we have two Gersoris in Maseches Makis. Let's read the way our Gemara reads. Given Luki by Choser Kortov. You have three Luki by, but you don't have a full three Luki by. It's missing a little bit. That a little bit of wine went into it and made it three. It looks like wine. Why? Because it became bread. Why did I place the mikvah? Because they don't have the, according to the second Shav Rashi, in the Gersa that we have, they don't have a shear of water, and they don't have the color of water. They have neither. Because it's red, and you don't have a shear.
So why didn't it cost?
Because only water is placed in the mikvah. But if it was 3 lugi water and a little bit of milk came in, now it looks like water. Why? Because it's not 3 lugi water. So according to Tanakama, I need to have the shear. I don't have a shear here. So even though the color is bright, meaning the milk means it doesn't really change the color.
You need both. You need the shear and the color.
That's the discussion here. You have to have both of that.
Because the first case is told that there was a shear.
Why is the shear?
Oh, you're right.
So that's what Bo's pointing out. That's really the difference between the two Gersos. The two Gersos over here in the Gemara. I was not planning to go into it, but now Bo mentioned it. Rabbi should mention it.
I mentioned a mistake.
No, so the Gerso here, does it say the first sentence, Gimel Lugi Bai Choser Kortov or not? Shah, do you have the word Choser Kortov? So Rashi brings both Gersos. One Gerso doesn't say Choser Kortov. So it's 3 lugin. It's full water, but it looks like wine. So according to Tanakama, it needs to be both the color and the size. According to the other Gerso, no. I don't need to have the color, but I need to have at least the size. In both cases, I don't have the size. I don't have enough because I have 3 lugim, less than 3 lugim, and I filled them either with wine or with milk. Okay. So it looks like what the Philip up a story. Goes basic color. He says by the milk case, it looks like water. So therefore, it has a din of water. So he says, according to Yechezkel, you go based on the look. And therefore, right now, how does it look like? Looks like water. So we say, like we just said before, that if eventually it will turn to be ferment, so then you'll say retroactively it becomes from the beginning. That's not according to Yechezkel. According to Yechezkel, I have to ask to look like fruit. So right now when you took it doesn't look like fruit. Later it will. You don't say retroactively it goes back. That's only not according to Yechezkel. Now according to Yechezkel, I have to go with the shear. This is a shear. Like I go in, is this the thing? Is this a fruit or not a fruit? But according to Yechezkel,
so which Benuri is saying
the not Mizbar Lefir.
what?
You do not say Mizbar Lefir. How about not our Mishnah? It says our Mishnah, not the Bryce.
This Bryce that talks about buying the Tamid Meiser.
That Mizbar Lefir doesn't go like Yechezkel.
That's not.
It sounds like more Pliga de Arbelozer. So the whole statement that we had, this was like a side note. That's exactly why I decided what came in here. But we said that our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. Why? Because our Mishnah requires it to have the right taste. Why? Because Rabbi Yehuda, he holds that when you have water mixed with sediment, it has a din of the fruit, but only once it's machmitz. Only once it ferments, right? Then we said the Mizbar Lefir also works. Says the Gemara, "Pligi da blozar kol boy dishe mafrishi v'lo b'mokom acher ele you can hichmitz." Everybody agrees that in order for it to be considered a real fruit, you need to wait for it to ferment. Then it's real fruit, and you can do Trumas Vaisus somewhere else on it. In other words, it's considered to be like any other Trumas Vaisus. But if it did not machmitz, you cannot be mafresh for somewhere else. Kasovar below yichmitz machlokes. The machlokes if it did not ferment. So that's why we have machlokes. But it holds it's nothing. The reader holds it is something. But it says even though it's something, it's not a full fruit. But the machlokes if it did ferment, so then our mission doesn't work according to neither. The Hadkal is only mechayev to do meiser b'nei ubei. You can't use something from the outside. Why? If I consider this to be fruit, according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's not for sure fruit. It's a baby fruit. Because it's a baby fruit, so therefore I can't do a fresh Trumas Vaisus somewhere else. And why not? This is a very long Rashi. I mean, relatively speaking, it's a long Rashi. Rashi explains that the reason is because you go, if you're going to be mafresh from this on other fruits, this may not be Trumas Vaisus. So you're going to think the other fruits are good. They're not good. They were never fixed. And if you're free from other fruits on them, also, the fresh that you do is not really Trumas Vaisus, because Trumas Vaisus only works when it's on some fruits. But these fruits are maybe not fruits, so you give it to the kohen, the wrong thing, give him tevel. So you can't do it. This is not for sure considered to be a fruit. So according to Rabbi Lazar, the only time that Rabbi Yehuda said that fruits are considered to be the the water is considered to be fruit is only before it ferments. After it ferments, everybody agrees it's a fruit. It's only before. You really can't explain the mission the way we wanted to say before. Continues where it says, "Torah about it hatemed achlo yichmitz." You have these sediments that did not yet get the taste of the fruit. Without base, v'shikoi b'mayim. What does v'shikoi b'mayim mean? There is water you can be usually oichli uvashkim. You cannot put it to the mikvah to retire them. They stay tummy forever. But water has one difference called a shokah. Shokah means shokah's you kiss the water with the mikvah, and that makes the water okay. Because part of the mikvah. So this is considered to be water. And then you can touch it with water. Once you absorb the taste, it's a fruit. Only if the water originally was tart. When it became tabeh, so then it can be a shock. But if the water originally was tabeh, that does not work. It's not understood why we differentiate that. So we sure you tried to understand what was even the Havamina. He wanted to say that it depends if the water was Tomei or became Tomei. So says the Gemara, so he came to Avashi to tell the Shmuel. Why you tell me that if it was Tomei, so you don't do a shoko? You want to tell you water is heavier. You want to say the water which is heavier goes down, and the fruits go up. So you're touching the mikvah not with the water, but in the fruit. It says the Gemara, and if you're not touching with the water, so what do I care if the tuba came first or not? Labai say the water is not touching the mikvah. They have to say no, the water is not heavier, and they mix well with the fruit. So here the same thing, and that's the Gemara said that's the maskana. Again, Rashi brings over here the second so he needs to touch it directly. The same. No, we're not so clear what the Havamina of Rava was. Continue the next Mishnah. Kol mokum sheyesh becher knas, kol mokum sheyesh knas becher. Just remember, Seches Ksuvis. That's already a word that we're familiar with. We know that the idea of selling, a father can sell his daughter to be a shivcha. That's until the age of 12. A naira that was nenas, that was raped, or even she have to pay for the father. That's what's a naira. Only above the age of 12. This is the Mishnah very clearly. Until 12, he could sell the daughter. From 12, she has knas if there was someone had a relationship with her.
So,
The Torah tells you can sell your daughter. You need to make some money. You need some, so very legit. I mean, what else would you do with your daughter? She has, Says the Gemara, Omar, if you know about Rav, Zu Divrei Meir. That's the shita of Meir. Or one of your Yudo, we'll see in a second. He holds you can still have knas when she is young. A young child from the time she's born until the age of 12, the father can sell it. There's no knas if there was a relationship by somebody else. Once she brings to her, once she's 12 years old, until she becomes an adult, so then there is a knas with no becher. That's from Meir of our Mishnah that we say it's either or. From 3 years old onwards, interestingly, here we say 3 years old, and Rameir said 1 day old. But the reason is because we're talking about knas. Yesh la knas. The minute she's royal lebiyah, there's knas. Knas in becher loy. There's only knas, no becher. Meaning the becher really starts even earlier. But along the becher, from the age of 3 starts a knas. So from 3 years old until 12 years old, those 9 years, there will be both knas if someone has a relationship with her, and becher if someone has if the father can sell her. It's brought down just to give you a little that the becher is to marry her. Usually when they sold her as a shivcha, she ended up married. So, yeah, I hear. It's very far for us.
That the mecher is only, that the knas is only for 3 years. So there is an extra time period for mecher
and no knas
from a day old until 3 years.
Yes, exactly. So the Mishnah, as long as the child who gets married can do miyun. Miyun means she can what was the right translation? She can refuse the marriage. Ain't chalitza, no chalitza. If there's chalitza, there's no miyun. Meaning, because chalitza is only once she's 12 years old. So my video Marav is with Rameir. Not the sheet of Rameir. The Rameir holds that a child can do miyun until the age of 12, and that's it. She can continue doing miyun even afterwards. Until what age the bas can do miyun? Until she's going to be 12 years old. No, it can be a little older. Until she has black hair over her skin. Rashi points out, not full black hair, has to be 2 long hairs. In other words, she can have a few more months even after she is 12 to come and change her mind with his marriage. Final Mishnah, Zok the Mishnah, Komoku Shishtkio. Yeah, Chalitza is only when she has to be an adult.
There is a way where you do
What?
There is a point where you can do miyun without at least.
Yeah, till the age of 12. Till the age of 12, everybody agrees to miyun. The question is, can you do miyun after 12? So now, Cody is saying there's something called tkiyo. Tkiyo is where you blow shofar when Shabbos comes in. To tell everybody to make sure to be mabdul from melach, not to do any melach. Havdalah is when Shabbos goes out. So when I have tkiyo, there's no havdalah. Kol kushish havdalah ain't tkiyo. Now regular Shabbos, obviously, because tkiyo is in the beginning, havdalah is in the end. So what are we talking about? Yom Tov Shechal Yom Tov Shabbos. We just had now this past week. Yom Tov was on a Friday. Toikim v'lem avdilim. You're gonna come and do tkiyo, and then now the Shabbos comes in, not havdalah. Why? Because you do tkiyo when the kedusha becomes stronger, and havdalah when the kedusha becomes weaker. From Yom Tov to Shabbos, which kedusha is stronger? Shabbos. So therefore, I do tkiyo. For v'lem avdilim, no havdalah. To Shabbos, but if Yom Tov will be a Sunday. Mavdil v'loy toikim. Then you do Havdalah and not Tkiyo because the Kedusha is coming lighter. Ketzad Mavdilin. What's the Havdalah that you do between Shabbos and Yom Tov? Hamavdil ben Kodesh l'Kodesh. You don't say Mavdil ben Kodesh l'Choyel. Mavdil ben Kodesh l'Kodesh because it's 2 days of Kedusha. You say a stronger Kedusha and a lighter Kedusha. So the Gemara will be the Tkiyo that you have on Yom Tov coming to Shabbos. You do tkiyo, and from the tkiyo you do trua. Ravasi Omar, in other words, you don't do a break. Ravasi Omar, tkiyo Maria b'neshima achas. You could do a break, you have to just do one neshima. Right? Hit Ravasi v'utza kishmayit said the what? That you do tkiyo and a true in one shot. Meisive Yom Tov Shechal Deo Shabbos Toikim L'Mirim. Tell you do tkiyo without true. My love L'Mirim Klau. No true at all. So well, loy. I really baptize the time. I baptize the time. I really baptize the time. L'Mirim if you have to, you don't do true on its own. And let me take a tkiyo has to be part of the tkiyo. If I baptize the time, L'Mirim Mishtei Neshimas and L'Neshiva Achas do only one Neshiva. Now, here is the Talmud hard because these things coming into halachas Rosh Hashanah. When we're doing Tkiya Shev Rosh Hashanah, so we have a discussion that we're trying to do Neshima Achas Shtei Neshimas by Shvar Trua. Meaning, Tkiya and Trua has to be obviously 2 Neshimas. Because that's the way to do Tkiya. And that's why he was saying it's a little different. But when you're having Shvar and Trua, the Shaila is what do you do? And we have over here, this comes, I never realized that the source of it is from here. We have a Chulin to show you do Shtei Neshimas Neshima Achas, and that's similar to here, but that we know in general. There's a sheet of the Chazon Ish that the way you do trua is to you do trua mitech hashvar. So you're doing do. That's to connect. So where does this come from? This is the place it comes from. This idea of Miriam mitech hashvarim is like Miriam mitech tkiyo. Same moment to Shabbos. What happens? In other words, where do you say B'Kodesh l'Kodesh? So even in the beginning, when you're saying instead of saying but we say in the beginning regular, as we'll see in a moment. Why do we pass in this way? Because we don't be mizalzel in Yom Tov to say Kedusha Kal. So that's to say Kodesh Kodesh. You have a Yom Tov that happens on a Tuesday. What is he going to say? So what is he going to bother by? Do we mention all the Havdalas that we're saying on Shabbos? So the Gemara says yes. Why not? Also. That's fine. You also mention Yom Shvish even though you're not in the middle of the week. You're not in Yom Shvi. You're not on Shabbos. So the Gemara, my time said the Havdalah Sumoine. He's mentioning the Havdalas that I mentioned in the Torah Rashi. Look at the last Rashi in the Perek. Rashi brings said the Havdalah Salmurs but Torah Humoine. The reason we mention these 4 because they mention the Torah. Ulahavdil ben Akosh ben Achoyel. That's one thing. Vayavdel ben Or ben Achoshech regarding Or and Choshech. Vayavdil Eschem in Ami in Yoisli. That's Yisrael in Ami. Ubiyoy Shvi Ainu ben Kodesh Lechoyel. Now, so that's why I'm bringing all of them the list, even though they're not all Megillah here. And then he mentioned, then he ends, Baruch then it says Baruch Haba Gosh L'Choil. That's what we mentioned Shumei Semaise, and that's what we say it. And with this we end the first parak of Maseches Chulin. Hadra Lachakol Sheichadin, Hadra Lachakol Sheichadin Be'ezer Hashem Yisborach.